If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Central Valley Talk. I'm Ray Johns. I'm your host, and the name of the show is Voices Not Yet Heard. And like we say every week, we hope perhaps your voice will get heard today. Now, before we get into the show, and we've got a great show lined up for you, I just want to give you an update on my three friends. And like I told you last week, they're all in serious condition with ill-wise. And the update is on Monday, the 31st, the one who has stage 4 colon cancer is going to have a 4 to 6 hour operation. But the great news is, of all three of these guys, is that every morning and every night I either read them something positive or I send them something positive, and we're using quantum physics and epigenetics, which is a new science, and we'll talk about that later on one of the shows. But they are making progress. I am so excited about what we're doing, and it is just absolutely wonderful. They have great attitudes. Now they're calling me back and telling me good, positive things. So it's wonderful. These three men are going to make it. I told you that last week, and I'm going to keep you updated every week. But it's a great, great week, and I thank you. I got a lot of phone calls from people, and they're on a lot of prayer lists. And please say a prayer for the one who is having the surgery on Monday, because it's going to be a 4 to 6 hour operation. Now, before we're going to get into the show, and we're going to talk about Scaramucci. We're going to talk about, if you didn't hear on the way over here, President Trump appointed John F. Kelly as Chief of Staff. And what a wonderful, wonderful super mood. And we got Gary here. Gary, how you doing, buddy? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a good move, but you got to go back to the very beginning, and then you'll see why things have kind of gone along the way they have in terms of hiring.
Yeah.
Trump's hiring. And Trump's thought at the very beginning was he had not the experience of working with the Washington, D.C. And he knew that. And his opinion was to hire people who have had experience with the workings of...
That's John Kelly. Great
of Washington, D.C. Now that brings in the politicians that he brought in. In other words, who he hired were people who were ex-congressmen, senators, and people who have had a working relationship with the Congress and the Senate. Why? Because he did not have that experience.
No, he didn't.
So he felt that this would serve a better for him. To have these people who know the ropes, as you will.
Exactly.
And it makes sense.
Yeah, it did.
You know, you hire people to make that, that know the ropes. But where you ran into a quandary is Washington, D.C. is basically a corrupt, deep state, Republican, Democrat.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Doesn't matter.
But you're right.
It's a bureaucracy that is more in tune of corruption than anything else. Okay, so then that meant that all these people could not be as effective as Trump had hoped they would be, because they're owned by different people. None of them are owned by Trump.
None of them.
So it's a different breed of cat that he ended up with, and that's where all the leaks, all the backbiting, all that goes on behind the scenes comes about. Well, Trump didn't expect it to be that severe, but it is, and it has been. I mean, you've got people they're letting him down because, again, they have been there for a long time.
And they're part of the whole thing.
And they're part of that deal. So what Trump needs to do, and what he is doing, that comes back to Scaramucci. He needs
Great appointment with
He
Scaramucci.
needs to go to the heartlands and hire American citizen patriots and not go
I
to
like
the
that.
Washington, D.C. political whorehouse and hire.
Good point. Very,
Right.
very good point.
And so what he is doing now is making that shift. And Scaramucci is an example. Some of the others he has on there. But he's got to get rid of those original people who are not in America's
He
best
knows
interest.
exactly what he's doing. This is a great appointee. Scaramucci's
Yeah.
and so is on the way over here. I almost stopped the car. I was so excited, to find out that he appointed John F. Kelly, and Kelly, of course, was head of the Homeland Security. It's going to be interesting to see who takes his place. I hope it's another general. I
Yeah.
really do. I like having generals in that position.
I hope it's an American citizen instead of a corrupt politician.
Yeah.
And let's face it, whether Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. And Trump is, like for instance, Sessions. Oh, I thought was going to be a great pick.
I did too. I
Well,
really did.
He's not at all. I mean,
No.
let's face it, he's not.
No.
He has caused the taxpayers an unnecessary spending of millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
Has done nothing but hurt Trump all the way.
From the get.
From the get.
From the very get.
I mean, my Lord, the guy has been in
I
in
was
my
excited
estimation-
about Sessions.
Well, I was too. And I bought into the
I did too.
hook, line, and sinker. But I tell you, when he started with that recruit, and nothing has happened since then.
No.
And what do I mean? As far as why I say nothing happened in the way of the crime that's in the deep state.
Yeah.
Because he's one of them.
Yes, he is.
And he's owned by them. And there isn't a congressman or senator that isn't owned by him, but that Scaramucci's not owned by anyone.
No, neither is Kelly. Of
And
course.
neither is Kelly.
Let me put in something here real quick. I just wanted to apologize again for having to wear these glasses. Hopefully this will be the last week I have to wear these things, and I know they look kind of weird, but I love them. They were given to me, of course, by our head tech here, and I love them. I wear them to work. I wear them to the gym. I wear them everywhere, and they are great glasses. But I hope I don't have to wear them on the show again. But we'll see what happens. I'm getting better. I'm progressing. And I'm sorry, Gary. Let's continue here about Scaramucci and Kelly.
Well, these are people that are going to be necessary now, or have always been necessary. But there were some miscalculations made by Trump in terms of thinking that those people were going to be all that beneficial to him.
It's like you said. It was a smart move.
Right.
He wasn't a politician, so
Right.
he thought, why not? Let's go get these
Right.
people that
Right.
have been here.
But they have done
Sessions
nothing
being
but-
one of them, and it turned out to be disastrous. Sessions was a major mistake.
Well, they're all about resist, and the Democrats, and they're all about, obstruction. And
Definitely
So
obstruction.
you got to ask. I mean, if you're against that, then what is it you're for?
Yeah.
And they can't answer that.
No, they can't.
And they have no plan, no nothing. It's just and so what Trump's been fighting that now for 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that he's gotten the stuff that he has gotten through.
It is amazing. With all the opposition that he faces on a daily basis, it just amazes me that he gets things done, and he continues to roll along and get things done.
Well, on the plus side, it demonstrates the average American that there's a group of people that are representing us that do not have our interest in mind.
No, they do
I mean,
not.
it's just graphic now.
Yeah.
And they have another interest, which is a globalist interest with the elites and their own interests, of course, way ahead of. Well, if they didn't have that, they would have a health care just like the rest of us. How come theirs has to be different?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they are not interested, other than to get elected. They're not interested in the people they represent, and this was proven in the last few months,
Yes,
if
it
it
was.
ever has been. So
Very true.
So I look at that as being a plus.
Yeah.
And that because more and more people are seeing it. All right? Well, so then what is Trump doing? Well, he's going about trying to do something about it. And
He just plods along, doing exactly what he should be doing and making things happen.
Well, the number one thing that he does on every little thing is America first.
Yeah.
America people first. I mean, on anything.
And like you said, if you're against that, if you're not for that, then you're obviously against that. And what are you for if you're not for that?
Well, you're
it's
for
a very simple question.
You're for something that you probably you probably are ignorant about. You probably don't really understand it because if you did, why would anybody want to be for something like that as an alternative to freedom?
It's almost like cattle, you know.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, you know, and you've been a farmer. You know, those milk cows at 4 o'clock, they all start plodding one behind the other, and that's what it reminds me of. You know, they look at the media. You know, they read the Washington Post, they read the Boston Globe, and they believe what they read. So they're all just plodding along.
Well,
you know,
yeah,
like
and the bottom line is a simple one. I mean, you know, that's the Marxist thing. It goes way back. Number one, you control health care. Number two, you control education. Number three, you control the media. And that is little by little being subjugated a little bit, you know, and that's all plus. But boy, I tell you what, I don't see how in the world Trump has the guts to fight that every day. Yeah.
Every single day he fights
and it's
us.
all for the better of the American people, and American people, little by little, have to understand that.
You know, and you said something weeks ago when you were on the show that people are starting to wake up. It's slow, and it's going to be slow. It's not going to be overnight. We all know that. But people are starting to realize what's happening in this country, and they're starting to see this, you know. And instead of being blinded by the false news, which is what they're getting every single day, you know, and which the majority of them base their opinion on. That is sad, very sad to me.
Ray, I was thinking we ought to get our guest on here, don't you think?
Well, why don't we talk just a little bit more? We'll take a break and then we'll bring him back. And let me tell you, we have Trenton Pressley, and if you remember, this young man is just brilliant. It's so much fun to have him on. He was on with a friend of his, 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do here in a few minutes, we're going to go to break. We're going to come back with Gary, and Gary's going to introduce this young man. He's his nephew, and we're going to talk to this young man about what the young people think about what's going on in this country, and as we did before. And I know you're going to find this very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait. This young man is just brilliant. It's fun to have him on. I'm so glad he's here today, and that was a pleasant surprise when Gary came and told me, guess who's coming? I'm just thrilled to death. So we're going to take a little break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back and say 2 and 2.
Me and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Okay, I'm back, and I'm with Trenton. Trenton, welcome to the show, buddy. We
Pleasure
had you
to
on
see you,
once.
sir.
You know what? I want your opinion about what's going on. Let me ask you just a simple question here.
Okay.
Do you run into a lot of negativity because you're a conservative, you're a Republican like I am, and a conservative. Do you run into a lot of negativity from the Gary refers to them as the libtards. I refer to them as useless idiots, and they're one and the same as far as Gary and I are concerned. But do you run into a lot? People ask me that question. I'm curious about you as a young person.
It's funny to me because a lot of the people that preach against not having judgments against people of different cultures and backgrounds, that's what the liberals kind of view themselves as, are the ones that make the quickest judgments against the Republicans and other viewpoints.
Good statement.
Because a lot of the times on even social media, I find myself making a comment to something that Donald Trump would post, and then I get a bunch of other remarks back like, oh, you're a racist Republican or this and that, and I didn't really say anything wrong, and I just think a lot of it's just kind of the upfront judgmental viewpoints of the liberals.
Do you think that's just an excuse? I mean, that to play the race card, because I do.
To a certain degree, I think a lot of it's with the media, and I think I absolutely, I can't watch the news anymore. I can barely even check any news sites whatsoever anymore.
Gary's taught me that. There's only a couple of places I go to, and like Gary said, you want to get the truth, go to Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think a huge thing, too, is with the media, is with this uprising and the police killings and stuff like that. I think a huge part of that's the media, because a lot of these lower-income areas can't differentiate the difference between fake news and real news, and they're seeing these things like racist cop shoots 10 people, but the guy was armed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is now even hurting our communication with these different places, because I think with cops nowadays, if in certain areas when these cops have great relationships with the people of these communities and these lower income areas, there's kind of a respect between the lower income areas and the cops.
I am so glad you said that. A perfect example of that was last summer in Baton Rouge. I don't know if you know this or not, but the police chief got together with the black community, and they had a big old barbecue,
Yeah.
And it was funny because you had all these cops with these big bellies out there dancing with these young black girls, and it was wonderful. I loved it. It brought tears to my eyes,
Yeah.
And they talked to both of them, and it's made a big difference in Baton Rouge,
Yeah, see, that kind of stuff gives me the chills. And
It does.
I think just it goes both ways. The police need to be better at communicating, and I think the other areas need to be better at communicating, because I think when both sides are tense, that's when guns get pulled. That's when people get nervous. That's when triggers get pulled.
Trenton, what saddens me is what happened in Baltimore, where that young policeman was shot because he was afraid of being called a racist. He was afraid and so he hesitated, and he got shot. And I think that happens all the time. We don't hear about it in the media.
Yeah.
They're not going to print that.
Yeah.
They want to print all the bad stuff that's happening. They don't want to talk about some policeman who hesitated because he was afraid what would happen to him.
Yeah.
What he would be branded a racist or he shot first. And,
And you know what? I see both ways, too, because these medias nowadays make all these police force out to be racist. And you know what? If I'm an African American younger male in the dark, and there's some like a police officer approaching me saying, like, hold up your hands or something, I'm kind of tense to pull from my gun too at that point, because I'm afraid he's going to shoot me as well. And I just think the more communication we have between communities, the better it gets.
Yeah, I agree with you there, totally, buddy,
Yeah.
totally. And we don't have that, and we need it on both sides. But we need the media, with this false media, to quit making the policemen look like the bad guys, because they're not the bad guys.
I agree with you completely.
And I just that bothers me so much, and it's putting our police officers, our law enforcement officers, in a position where they think. You don't think. I mean, this all started back with Michael Brown.
Yeah.
It all started back with hands up, don't shoot, which was a falsehood, and Black Lives Matter, that awful group, was formed out of that, and they have been nothing. I mean, I couldn't believe that Obama invited them to the White House, And Michael Brown, I tell you what, I'd have shot him 10 times. I mean, the guy was a thug. He had just abused some people, and then he's approaching a policeman. I would have shot him in a minute.
Yeah, and I think another thing is, too, people need to make better efforts for their children to respect authorities. I think this generation especially tries to make such a deal about, let's stand up to this, let's stand up to that, even though they don't need to. Like, if a policeman tells me to put my hands up, my hands are going straight up.
Doggone right there.
We see in so many situations nowadays where these people are like, pull out your phone, let's videotape it. Or let's keep walking, let's make a point. And I think too many people try to make a point nowadays to other authorities, media, whatever it be, that it just turns into a horrible, hostile situation.
It does. It does indeed. Good point. Very good point. I just wish, and like you just said, we need better communications between the policemen and between the people on the street and between the communities.
Yeah.
Mayor, what's his name, Blasio? I mean, I think he's white. He's married to an African American lady, and he openly told his children, to be aware of the cops, and rather than tell them to cooperate with the cops, he told them to be aware of the cops and act this way or act that certain way. And a mayor of a major city would tell his children that.
Yeah.
And it was so awful, and you couldn't blame the cops for turning their backs on him.
Yeah. And here's another thing I think too, like for someone to tell their kids that, it shouldn't make national news. And I think so many times nowadays people make it national news that people are like, oh, this mayor told my kids this, I'm going to tell my kids this too.
Exactly.
And I just think it starts with up top, the liberals up top, and it just reciprocates down.
It's like Gary and I said. These people are influential. We were talking about earlier before you came and before the show started. Gary and I were talking about certain athletes that are making, really blatant judgments on things, and people look up to these people.
Yeah.
They look up to these athletes, and when they hear them say it, they think that's true. You weren't here last week, but I played baseball up in Madeira, and I ran into two 16-year-old Hispanic kids, who we talked for a long time, and they had this totally bad view about the police, about Donald Trump. And when I asked them where they got it from their parents. And Gary made a very good point last week. He said, here you've got a husband and wife. They come home at the end of the day, they're tired. They sit down with their family, they turn on the TV, they watch the news, and they hear all this false news, and they and they agree with it because they're seeing it on TV. They don't do their own due diligence. So the only thing that they have to go on is what they hear on the radio, what they see on television, what they read in the newspapers. And so this influences the children, and so that thing carries on and on and on. I'm sure you see that.
And honestly, I think at this point it's almost like even like a temptation, because I feel like there's even been times where I've looked on like CNN and such, and I've seen these articles that like catch my eye, that they make these huge news articles out of, and they kind of change views into people and like make cops out to be racist, and it like catches the attention of people, and people want to watch it more, and the more people that watch it, the more the views spread.
I quit. I started watching CNN again. I completely got away from it. Would not watch it, but I watch it just to see the different views. Something major can happen with Donald Trump, and you can read Fox and you can read CNN. Totally two different views on the same subject. Yeah.
And talking about news again, another thing that came out this week is Donald Trump tweeting about the transgender rule that he wants to impose on the military. And I honestly, in my viewpoint, I think that they should impose the don't ask, don't tell again. Because I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're transgender, black, white, whatever. I think if your brother next to you is fighting next to you, you need to worry about saving his life.
I agree with you, young man, totally.
And I think the more people try to make statements like, hey, I'm a transgender in the military, I'm going to go make out with a guy to try to make national news about it and try to make my point, I just think it causes a lot of distractions in the military. So I think don't ask, don't tell is probably one of the best things that happen.
Exactly. I think it's perfect. I think it's absolutely perfect. I agree with you.
Yeah, and then it's almost like related, like on Disneyland. When I go to Disneyland every now and then, because my school's right down there, there's so many times nowadays where I see two guys making out or two girls making out, and whether it be two guys and two girls or a guy and a girl, I do not want to walk through Disneyland with my kids and see that. And I think too many times these transgender people want to make themselves almost... they want to make their point to the world, and they do that by making out in front of or doing these certain things or acts to. And I just think in the military that's going to cause a distraction.
It is. It is definitely going to cause a distraction. And the one thing you don't need in the military when you're fighting somebody, you don't need any distractions other than what you're there to do.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. I think people come from so many different viewpoints in the military because our military is so diverse. That we don't need the distractions for my water polo team, if we got into a fight, if someone that was African American on my team got into a fight, I guarantee you everyone on my team would be in the pool.
Don't you love that? I love that. I have played on baseball teams since I was 6 years old, and it didn't matter. You get in an argument with somebody, both benches are going to empty.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. It happens in our in the 50-year-old league.
And you know what? I guarantee you, if there's a transgender or someone on our team that was like that got into a fight too, everyone would be in the pool.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think the problem happens when there's so many different viewpoints in a diverse military like we have, which is great. To where if these guys are making statements that I disagree with, it could affect whether or not battle wise, I want to save them, and it just affects war a lot. I just feel like don't ask, don't tell was perfect.
I do too. I agree with you 100% about that. It's interesting to me that young people like you, and I wish there was more of them. That's another question. Do you think you're growing as a group?
Not really. I think
That's what I thought.
I think we're almost separating.
Yeah.
So
Why do you think that is?
Because of the media nowadays.
Sure. Exactly.
And I think you're almost, with social media and stuff, you're almost forced to make your viewpoints, and I just think it's separating more and more the more hate we have in between the groups. And then I think another thing with the military too is with the don't ask, don't tell, you also don't see things like military relationships happen. Like two transgender men could be dating, and he gets hurt in war. Let's just say that guy goes back and tries to save his partner. I think it just causes a huge distraction when you have an emotional attachment to someone in the military.
They try to discourage that from men and women too, because of the same thing.
So don't get me wrong. I think anyone could be in the military, and everyone should be in the military. I just think don't ask, don't tell should be.
I agree with you totally. I'm glad you brought that up. That's major, and I agree with you.
Yeah,
totally. Well, it's so interesting. It's so good to have you here because we need your viewpoint, and it's interesting. I thought you were going to say that. I thought you were going to say that you're dwindling, and that's sad because we need more of people like you that stand up and talk, and I hope that changes. I really do.
And here's the thing, too. I think the more we see separation between the groups, the more the conservatives are going to start fighting back and not taking that stuff, and that's just going to cause a lot of tension. Yeah. So I think we just need some way to just ease the tension between everyone now. Yeah. And I think the liberals, a lot of them can't take a loss or don't know how to accept a defeat.
Look what's happening. You're right. They haven't been able to accept defeat in the last 6-7 months.
Yeah, which I've seen. I mean, we've seen both ways. When the Democrats have won, there's been a few Republicans that have maybe said some things that were hurtful or done some things that were hurtful, but we don't see huge protests. And
like we're having now.
Exactly. These are like full riots that you see in third world countries.
I'm glad you said that, because they are not protesters. They're rioters.
Civilized.
And I said it on my show before. Mahatma Gandhi in 1948, he protested against the British Empire. Martin Luther King protested against injustice in the 60s. These were protesters. These people are rioters, and a lot of them paid rioters at
and
that.
It's disgraceful to people like Martin Luther King who protested peace.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, these people are throwing stuff through buildings and just taking matters into their own hands.
I still have that awful image in Washington of those black people that drug that white guy out of the car and just beat the crap out of him. And I go to GB3 every day, and every day I wear a Trump T-shirt. So now I've become real popular there with all the people there. I just love it, because they call me, as soon as I walk in, they call me the Trump man, and I just love that. And today after my cycle class, I got up and I said, listen to my show today. We're going to have some interesting guests on the show, and I just love being a part of that. And people, and I have people come up to me all the time. I had 2 policemen come up the other day, and they said, you're brave to wear that shirt. And I said, I wear it every day. And it's a statement that I make, and I dare somebody to step on my First Amendment rights.
That's the thing. He's the president of the best country in the world. It shouldn't have to be a statement, or you shouldn't have to be brave to wear the shirt. And I think that's a disgusting view that's brought out with the liberals these days. Exactly. You shouldn't have to be brave. Yeah. Like, there was plenty of people that wore Obama shirts to school when he was elected, and I didn't say anything.
No, I never even know. I didn't see it. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
But to have somebody come up and say, "Why do you have that shirt on?"
Yeah.
And it just, I get more comments, great comments, than I do negative comments. I hardly get them anymore. I'll get looks, but people are almost afraid to say something. I guess I've got that look, and I do, and I apologize for that. It's almost a dare, like, go ahead, say something to me. Yeah. I got something for you, and I do. I have that attitude.
Yeah, and then another thing that's weird to me, too, is, like, all these people that are afraid to endorse Trump now because their company is going to lose business because of these protesters, and I just think that's absolutely disgusting, because this is the president of the United States of America. Like, for example, Kanye West, when he was on tour, came out and said he supported Donald Trump, and the next thing I know, all chaos broke loose.
Oh, yeah. They wanted to kill him.
And
he got death threats.
The funniest thing to me, too, is a lot of these people that are, like, hating Donald Trump and protesting the government, they say that they don't want that much government, or they want less government in their lives, and that's exactly what conservatives want. It makes no sense to me at all.
It doesn't.
They protest against these things like big businesses, but that's exactly what...
That's what he ran on, less government. That's what he ran on, less government. And yet, they should be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because they're talking the same thing, but they're not,
Yeah, and then they want less taxes, and they think the way to get less taxes is a liberal way, but that makes no sense at all.
It hadn't worked yet, has it? And it's not. And it's not going to work. It is not going to. It is so nice. We're going to try to get you back on here before the show's over. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Well, we want to get you back on here today before the show. We're gonna take a little break now, and when we come back, Gary's going to come back and talk a little bit, and then toward the end of the show, I want you to come back on and let's talk again, okay?
Sounds good.
Before the end of the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me,
ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be back and say 2 and 2.
From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, crossings of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to L.A.
Okay, I'm back, and Gary's back with me. I want to apologize. Trent had to leave. He is an apprentice for Robobank, and he had to get back, and he took his lunch hour to come over and be with us, and I thought, what a great thing. Neat young man, just a wonderful young man. You must be very proud of him.
Oh, I am.
He is just brilliant.
Yeah, he's just been a great guy all the way through, and as well as he has 2 sisters, and they're both just outstanding.
What a bright future for this young man. What a bright future. He's got a great attitude. He's starting off right. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes, because I can tell you right now, he's only going to go up. This young man cannot miss. It's such a pleasure.
His dad works for Robobank. His dad's been a
Oh,
great.
oh, really?
Yeah, he's done a great job with the family and so forth, and of course his mother, and I mean it's just been a great American family, and with
That restores your faith in you.
Oh yeah, and
to
and
talk to a young man like him.
I meet with them, once we go to a different, like a party or so, birthday, and you'd be surprised the number of their friends are just like them,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So it just gives you a lot of confidence.
Yes, it does.
And one of the interesting things that I seen mentioned the other day was they talked about Generation Z, which is about 13-year-old. That's the group that, like the Boy Scouts that Trump talked to and the Girl Scouts and all that. Well, that generation, how in the world they're doing it, but that generation is more conservative, more morals, more values, more American patriotism
I love it.
than the generations before them, like the Generation X and the Snowflakes or whatever that is. Yeah. This generation that are in there, in that age group, are more, for some reason, they're just more.
It's interesting how that happened.
I know that is that. I'm thinking,
but I'm very glad that it did.
oh my God, yeah, they're more business. And even though they're just young, you know, but they understand. They have more.
Don't you think that comes from parental guidance?
Well,
think
you
some
wonder,
of it
because I
must,
have to think some of those parents are got to be libtards.
Yeah.
And they're revolting against that in a sense, or going against that. But the other thing, they just seem to have more common sense for some reason.
Maybe they at that point they're just starting to think for themselves. Maybe perhaps that's
that could be
part of
too.
it,
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of refreshing to know that.
It is very refreshing.
And that group has, if you think about it, what Trump is creating with America Great Again, he's setting up an environment, an atmosphere where, my God, an opportunity for somebody in that age group, by the time they get into where they're productive.
Exactly.
Can you imagine the opportunity they'll have?
Yeah.
That the other generations did not have with all the foolishness.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I'll tell you an example of foolishness.
Okay.
Right here local. I remember back in the 50s, our neighbor, he wanted to be a lumber logger, and so he went up to the Sierras and got his permits and all, and became a logger. Mm-hmm. Well, we used to go and visit a lot in the summer, because it's cool up there. Well, when you went up there, you could smell the pines. Oh. You know that feeling, right?
I do, and I love it,
And everything was green, and there was no dead trees. Yeah. Oh, there might be one there and one here, right? Well, this went on for years, and so this logger, what he would do is he'd log the trees that he was told by the forestry to log. Now, you had real forestry people there. You didn't have what became, I call them the do-gooders, that infiltrated themselves in that, eco-freaks and that.
Yeah.
So here's what happened. Those foresters would find the trees that were about to, been infected, and they'd mark them, and then my friend would come along, and those are the trees they logged. So they were automatically rejuvenating the forest by removing the sick trees, right? Okay, so that was having a positive result in terms of commercial. We have a commercial use, and automatically a rejuvenation of our forest for free from a taxpayer standpoint. So now you go up there and you look at the Sierras, and there's 70-80% of dead trees.
That is so sad. It is so sad.
And you can't smell the smell. You don't. It's just like,
if you've never experienced the forest after it rains, it is just amazing.
Right.
It is just, and not to be able to experience that anymore, Gary, is just devastating to me.
There's probably sections up there, looks like 70-80% are all dead. Well, that's because of this, let Mother Nature take care of it.
Yeah.
So now what you end up with a non-commercial use of these trees, that they become worthless for anyone.
Yeah.
Before they were a utility, which was to benefit a lot of people, put a lot of people to work, built a lot of people's homes and so forth, right? All good. But now it's just left to be dead. And it is awful.
Gosh.
Okay, to try to smell you don't smell the pine.
No.
It's
That's
terrible.
the sad part of that.
All right, then you go along, And think about this. Now you got the cost of firefighting. Now who bears that cost? The taxpayers.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
You know, and so
And with all those dead trees and
Right.
dying trees up there, that makes it worse, you know.
Ray, it just almost it's like we're paying taxes where before we were collecting taxes, and now we're paying money to defend something there was nothing to defend because it was green.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you see where we are, what, call it 50 years later, and say, what a horrible decision somebody made.
Yeah. And it doesn't not have to be like that. It shouldn't be like that. You know?
No, I mean, why wouldn't common sense say, well, wait a minute, why don't we do it like we used to?
Exactly. It worked.
Yeah. And then when it was back to where it used to, then why would you change it? But it changes because of what? It has nothing to do anything but politics.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like the story I told you about the guy that I sold the mobile home to years ago in Tulare. And wonderful young man. And he calls me up a month later and he says, Ray, I'm renting that out for $800-900 a month. He says, I want to get another one. I said, okay. And he comes down, he picks out the mobile home he wants, and he says, I'm going to go get permits. Once I get permits, I'll come back and pay for it. And he said, do I need to leave a deposit? I said, no. No, you don't. I said, you've already bought one for me. Just go get your permits, come back. And he says, I'll come back. I'll give you a cashier's check for the home. So he calls me, and he says, you won't believe what happened. And I told you this story before. And he said, the county of Tulare told me, he's got like 22 acres, right? They told me, well, you know, you've got a house there, and you've got one double wide there, and you can't put another double wide, but it's okay to put a single wide. So my question to them was, who came up with this law? Who came up with this? Who? Why is it like that? I mean, my father would have had a fit if they told him. He was an old-fashioned guy. If they'd have told him, you can't put something on your own property, they would have had a heck of a fight out of him. And I just, you know, it goes along those same lines, you know.
Well, the common sense of something like this. In fact, I'll tell you who the logger was, my neighbor. It was Ray Messer. Remember Dale Messer that played? In fact, he's got a number retired for it. That's his dad.
Yeah, oh, it is? Yeah. Dale Messer, heck of an athlete. Heck of an athlete.
Played for the 49ers and so forth. But anyway, his dad, Ray, went up there in the 50s.
Mm-hmm. He was a logger, yeah.
Yeah, it was logging. And
oh, wow. How interesting.
So we used to go up there, you know, and visit and so forth. But, man, what a different forest today.
I remember going up for that Loggers Jamboree.
Oh, is that right?
That was so much fun to watch those big guys throw those axes, and they were so accurate. You know, it was just and the contest between the two guys sawing the logs and just all kinds of activities. Plus, the food was unbelievable. You know, It was just a great fun. I went twice, and then of course everything shut down. They don't have it anymore. But that was so much fun, and that's when you could smell the forest. You know?
I mean, we didn't. Our air here during the summer was it'd be hot, but it was clear. Of course, we have other reasons for it, but. Now we have all this smoke coming in and stuff.
You know, it's interesting. I can remember, and my three best friends. There's four of them. In fact, like I said, two of them are a part of that group that we're praying for and we're working with getting well. And we used to go out in the middle of an alfalfa field and lay on our back and look at the clouds, and you could see the mountains all the way around. All the way around, you could see the mountains, and I remember how beautiful that was. And of course, we took it for granted; we didn't think about it. Now, when's the last time you've seen the mountains all on all four sides? You know, you don't see it anymore.
I know there's been so much that has been done without thought or common sense. I mean, doesn't make all the common sense in the world if you sit there and you say, well, listen, I got a forest back there. And I'd like to make some money out of it. So you get some guy to go up there and log it, and you say, well, I don't want him to overdo it. So you go up there and take and hit the trees that are infected.
Yeah, it only makes sense. Yeah,
which has nothing. It's not to the point where it harms the utility at all of the lumber.
Yeah,
it's just a rejuvenation of that tree, or a tree starting to get sick. So what's happened is your forest is rejuvenated.
Exactly.
You know, and doesn't it make sense that's what you'd want to keep doing? Why would you want to let it go dead to where all of a sudden you're no longer receiving income from it, but on top of that, you're having to pay enormously
Totally opposite of what you were doing before.
Yeah, and mess. You talk about they talk about environmental of the air we breathe. You know, these do-gooders. My God, what do they think those forests? Your eyes water and all you smell is burnt wood. You know. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. We got dirty air, and then those people. Those are the same people that complain about dirty air are all for leaving the forest, sit there, become worthless, and then eventually, by nature, it's going to burn.
You brought something up. The EPA. What a joke! What a joke! One of their proposals were that they wanted to get California on the same line with like Idaho and Wyoming. You know, Idaho has probably less people than any other state in the union, or certainly one of the top ones. You know, and I mean, it's never going to happen in California. It's never going to happen, but that's their proposal. It just, when I read that, I thought, what an idiotic thing. You know, it's just idiotic. It's idiocy, you know, which is a whole lot of what happens with the government anyway. It's, you know, you've got libtards and useful idiots running things that shouldn't. Look at the state of California, you know.
All right.
Look what kind of state we've become. Look what kind of state we have become. And it's getting worse, you know.
Oh, Ray, it's just terrible, man. I mean, some of the stuff that they're doing, that California is passing with taxes and stuff, it's just incredible.
Don't they see I mean, for 10 years, major companies have been leaving this country, leaving this state. I mean, it started with Sony, a major company. You know, Pepsi-Cola left. All these major, Frito-Lay, all those things that are associated with Pepsi, they left. You know, because of taxes, you know, you have companies going to Nevada, going to Texas, you know, fueling their economy, you know, and they should be right here. You know, it just amazes me, like you said, why they can't wake up and see what's happening and say, you know what, let's change some things. Let's keep these companies here. Let's keep this money here in the state of California. You know, Ronald Reagan did it, you know, when he was governor of this state. It amazes me. It just amazes me. It's like it's got to be benefiting them some way.
Well, of course it's benefiting. I mean, you find that I was just reading today also, like, for instance, these congressmen and senators. I mean, they become congressmen and senators, but they go home rich.
Right, they do.
You know, and they're not, Ray, they're just are not serving people.
No,
they're serving who got them elected.
Exactly. That's all a part of the bureaucracy.
And that goes, again, for Republican and Democrat.
It doesn't matter. You and I talked about that before, and it doesn't matter.
I mean, like this, just now we had, 6 Republicans turn down
the health care bill.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? I just couldn't believe it. Of course those people, and I told people, they said, well, you know, the health care bill. I said, have you looked at the health care bill, or are you going on what you read, what you heard, what you saw on CNN? You know, they just won't get out and do their own due diligence. Like, you're an expert at that. You've taught me that, you know. And if people would just do that.
Look at the other side, or see if there is another side. Mm-hmm. There may not be, you know.
But at least take a look.
Yeah.
You know, at least take a look.
And
do your due diligence.
Because it's pretty much a rule of thumb anymore, as I see it, that anybody that's a senator or congressman, man, he is owned by somebody that is not in your best interest. He's a globalist, or he's an elitist, or something, you know.
It's all a matter of
establishment.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it comes down to that, and he's owned by people that benefit diametrically against you, the common man walking out across the United States.
I loved your statement a couple of weeks ago when you said we're in a civil war, and we are. We're in a basically we're having a political civil war right here in this country right now.
Well, and these people represent somebody, and I mean, it's a lot more deeper than what I thought. I mean, those guys are into people like Sessions.
Mm-hmm. Perfect example.
You know, I never thought he would be as controlled as he is.
It's like you and I said. You and I even talked about that months ago. We were excited about Sessions. I was excited about it. Yeah. You know,
I couldn't wait for him to get.
Yeah,
he's controlled like every single one of those people, and I mean, I don't see how in the world Trump's doing it, but he's doing it. It's little by little.
I love it, man. The man is so brilliant. He looks and he sees the thorn, and he just plucks it right out. That's exactly what he did, and that was the case with Sessions.
Well, they forced Trump into certain things. He wasn't all that keen about going after some members of that deep state. It didn't appear that way, but I think that was just a smokescreen.
I do too.
And so now these people that are that backbit him all this time, and all these. I mean, there's two faces they could be.
Yes, they are.
And Trump has said, okay, now if that's it, now I'm going to go one by one and take care of that. I got a kick out of that Scaramucci. He says, because he's a street fighter.
Oh yeah, he is, man.
And
he is definitely. He stands up and says what he likes, what he feels, and I love that.
He
about
says
him.
Here in Washington D.C., these people you think they're your friend, and they're so nice to you.
There's nothing worse than that. Somebody that you believe in, some little mousy son of a gun, and then they turn around, and I've had that happen, and you believe them, you have faith in them, and what do? They stab you in the back because that's who they are. That they don't have enough guts to stand up and face you face to face.
Scaramucci. My God, they turn around and stab you in the back. Well, he says, I'm not like that. I stab you right up front.
Oh, yeah. Don't you love it? Yeah, exactly. At least stand up, be a person, don't be a coward.
Right.
And tell the truth. That's it, I'd rather somebody come at me and say, you know what, I don't like this, I don't like that, than to do it behind your back and all of a sudden you got 6 knives sticking in your back.
Well, I think once Trump gets rid of those that were owned, by the deep state swamp or whatever you want, it's much more severe than what we thought.
Yeah.
But once he gets rid of that and then gets the people in there, which he is replacing people with people who are the American citizen patriot, as opposed to, I don't know, they're just political whores as far as I can see. Yeah. Well, how else do you describe it? I don't know.
Yeah. I think you describe it really pretty well, my friend.
And so when he gets rid of that, he's not going to get rid of that, but what he's going to do is be able to work with the people that have America in mind. And
like Scaramucci.
Yeah.
Like Kelly. Yeah.
Right. And
like Mad Dog Mattis.
Yeah, and there'll be things accomplished because of the benefit of America, regardless of what these people are doing over here. But I think there's going to be a lot of those that are going to find themselves that in the past they have been doing things that are not legal, and there's going to be a number of those come up.
Good.
And it is good because I think American people really don't like a 2-law system, one for you and one for me.
Exactly. We've had that. It hadn't worked yet, has it? And it's not going to work.
So I think that's where we're headed on that, and that's a good sign.
I do too.
There's going to be, all those investigations, and that those Russians. What happened is that it was made by the Democratic Party to look like the Russians were hacking them. It was made to look that way, and then the Democratic Party comes out.
It's amazing, and
it was all a farce.
Of course it was.
And look at all the money, then all the time.
And who bought it? They all bought it.
Yep,
they all bought it. That's the sad part.
Well, that's the sad part. You're right. That is the sad. All the libtards bought it.
Mm-hmm. They all did.
Something.
They all did. Gary, it looks like we're, as usual. Look at the time. We've run out of time. You. Can you come back next week?
Sure, we'll do that.
Sure, love to have you, man, because we need you. And ladies and gentlemen, like we always end the show, I got to tell you a quick little story. I came out of the gym this morning. I go really early, and I was walking toward my car, getting ready to go to my business, and a CHP rode through on a motorcycle, and he waved at me, and I waved at him, and I said, "Hey!" And he stopped, and I said, "I got to shake your hand." And he said, "What for?" And I said, "For doing an outstanding job." And big old smile on his face, Gary. Big old smile. And he said, "Well, thank you very much." I said, "You don't hear that too much, do you?" And he said, "No." I said, "You need to hear it more from those of us that appreciate you." So please, when you see one, it only takes a second. Go up and shake his hand and thank him for what he does for a minimal amount of pay, okay? These people are out there for us every day, and we have a great law enforcement system in this country. We have it right here in Fresno. Fresno's finest are wonderful. They're great people. Talk to them. I mean, it's fun to sit and talk to them and see them laugh, you know, and see them relax, you know. And I'll say something funny to them, like one day they're driving through the gym, and I said, "You're not going to get in shape driving in this car." And he said, "I know. I should be out there." And I said, "Well, come on. We'll go and do some workout." He says, "I'll catch you tomorrow," you know. And we laughed about that. But it's fun, and it makes them feel good, and they need that.
That's a great service, Ray. Great service.
I love doing it, and I want everybody else to do it in this town because they need it. So, like I say every week, ladies and gentlemen, to you, we meet again joyously next Friday at 3 o'clock. Heaven's blessings.
Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say
CentralValleyTalk.com